Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of 5 Facts. Today we are here to talk about M. Night Shyamalan's 2004 movie, The Village. It's going to be a divisive one in the chat, but I want you guys to give it a chance as far as just listening to the facts. I actually kind of like this movie despite the weirdness of the ending. Anyway, let's get to the facts. Fact number 1, this production went through a ton of work to make that 1800s feel authentic. All of the actors that were on here had to go through a boot camp of sorts, where they were taught how to use shears, churn butter, how to do woodworking, lots of different things that allowed them to actually be more authentic for this role. In fact, Joaquin Phoenix got so adept at the woodworking part that he's the one who made the cane for Ivy, and it's the one that she's using throughout the entire movie. The buildings itself were made over the course of 11 weeks with 300 people contributing to their building. It was a huge effort to make this village, and I think that the village itself looked pretty good. Fact number 2. The story was inspired after M. Night Shyamalan was offered to direct Wuthering Heights. Shyamalan was offered Wuthering Heights, and he decided that it was a little bit too pedestrian for him, a little bit too 10th grade English paper. So he decided that he was going to write his own script, which he called The Woods. It took him more than 8 months to get through this, and he decided that he was going to throw in some King Kong as well, where you had these villagers oppressed by an evil presence and monsters keeping them in a certain spot. He also decided to subvert this by going with Ivy being the one that's having to rescue people, especially with her disabilities for blindness and everything else. So he didn't want a damsel in distress. He wanted her to be very active in getting this medication and everything to Joaquin Phoenix's character. Fact number 3. The original monster design was very different. You briefly see images of what the village thinks the monster looks like carved into the rocks around the village, and this is what they were originally going to be like. They look a lot more like, say, a medieval lion drawing than what they end up being. There's a lot more gold, and the original ones were supposed to have cat faces. They were supposed to have similar claws, but they were going to be like full regalia of like a full mane and everything else. They didn't have the red cloaks that we end up seeing for the creatures that ended up being, which are more warthog-like with like porcupine-style spikes and everything coming out the back of it. It's a complete redesign, and I was trying so hard to find pictures of the original suits, and I found some mock-ups as far as like people trying to do it, but I never found production stills of what these suits were supposed to look like. As with all M. Night Shyamalan things, the things he wants you to pay attention to are bright red, so that's why he ends up making it the bad color here, and also why they end up in the red cloaks. It just added another layer of that whole like red thing that he has going on. Fact number 4, there are several errors with filming components being on screen despite this being a supposedly 1800s movie. Fact number 5, there are pretty substantial claims that this movie is plagiarized. Margaret Peterson Haddix made a book called Running Out of Time, in which a lot of people were living in an 1800s style environment that was actually in a nature preserve, and they did not know, or at least most of the people in the village did not know, that they were part of this different world. They had grown up with it. They thought that this was just the time period that they were living in. In this movie and in this book, they both have characters, young women with disabilities, that are going out into the wilderness to fetch medicine for somebody that has an infection. Specifically, after at the beginning of the books, there's been a child death. So there's a lot of things that are very similar here. M. Night Shyamalan, of course, denies it, but I just feel like there might be a little bit too much for it to be parallel thinking. The book reads as a different story, but the plot points line up so well that it's hard to just kind of ignore that. So I'm surprised that they didn't even get a lawsuit off the ground for this. Hopefully they gave her something of a kickback in sort of an out-of-court type situation. The Village gets a lot of heat for its end twist, and I kind of understand that. I'd say that I enjoyed a good 3/4 of this movie immensely. Maybe even 5/6 of it. Like, there was just a lot that there was to like. I loved the actors in it. I'm a huge fan of Joaquin Phoenix, Bryce Dallas Howard, and like Adrian Brody. All these other big names, Sigourney Weaver. They did excellent in the roles that they had for this movie, and the writing wasn't as bad as like The Happening or something along those lines, where this dialogue felt jilted. There are times where it's a little too flowery and a little too perfect, like the moment where they're talking about their wedding and everything, and like that perfect admission moment for Joaquin Phoenix's character, which was beautiful, but it's like it's one of those where it's almost too polished. But overall, I thought that this movie was a lot of fun, and the fact that there was a twist as big as that it was just kind of like, well, it's a full-on like colony inside of a nature preserve. It's like, we have pockets of people in this country that, for religious reasons, abstain from technology. This is jumping up one level beyond that. It doesn't seem like it's as implausible, except for the fact that airplanes would be flying over and things like that. You can't really stop that no matter how much money you have. There's always going to be some pilot not paying attention or military planes that don't care. So there's some pretty cool stuff that is in this movie. I thought that the twist that could have been, that would have been really interesting, is if there actually was something in the woods that stopped her from getting the medicine. Something along those lines, where it turns out that the reason that they picked those animals from the forest is because of rumors that had happened in that area before, if that turned out to be real. I don't know. There's a lot of different things that could go on here. But I really did enjoy like the themes of jealousy, that it wasn't just money that was driving crime. It wasn't just all this other like loss that had driven them there. Like that's still going to be an essential part of the human emotional spectrum, even if you take money out of it, even if it's a little bit less so. It's something that happens. And I just thought that this movie was fun. I wanted to do a little bit more of a deep dive into it, and The Visit had substantially less information on the making of. So that's how we ended up here with the 2004 The Village. Tell me what you guys thought of this movie. Did you hate it? Did you hate the twist? Was it just a bad movie overall for you? Was it a great movie for you? I'd love to hear in the comments. Also, if you really enjoy this, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/humanechoes to get pins, stickers, and all sorts of other cool stuff. We're actually changing the way our tiers work soon, so be sure to check that out. Talk to you guys very soon, and we will see you with more 5 Facts.